At one point, Ryan O'Neal appeared to have everything a guy could desire. Following Love Story, he became Hollywood's golden boy, accompanied by Farrah Fawcett, who was dubbed the world's most beautiful lady by every magazine. They were viewed by admirers as the ultimate power couple who led a glamorous and romantic existence and were untouchable. Behind the scenes, however, their relationship was tumultuous, reuniting, breaking up, and harboring unsaid regrets. Ryan remained silent about their relationship's deepest truth for decades. And everyone who believed they already knew their story was startled when he eventually told them at the age of 82. The world's perception of them both was altered by a heartbreaking confession that removed the picture of perfection. Ryan O'Neal was more than just another attractive Hollywood star when the public first saw him in the early 1970s. He became an overnight sensation after his breakthrough performance in Love Story, and the movie itself became a cultural icon. Posters hung in dorms, people quoted its lines, and Ryan became the actor that every studio wanted to cast. He was portrayed as the romantic leading man who personified heartbreak and adolescent passion. Farrah Fawcett, on the other side of the spotlight, was starting her own ascent to fame. She became well known very immediately because to her enduring smile, sun-kissed hair, and an exuberance that seemed to brighten any space. She became one of the most well-known women in the world when her famous red swimsuit billboard sold millions of copies. The media quickly branded Ryan and Farrah as Hollywood royalty when their paths intersected. They appeared to be a wonderful fit to the general population. The endearing television personality and film star whose careers represented a golden age of entertainment. Photographs of them at high-profile parties, vacations, and premieres were published by tabloids and magazines. They appeared to have the kind of relationship that most people could only imagine. Exciting, glamorous, and full of potential. For admirers, Ryan and Farrah stood for the notion that genuine love might endure in the glaring spotlight of celebrity. However, reality was much more complicated beneath the glitzy exterior. Although there was no denying their bond, many who knew them well started to sense tension. Farrah became a worldwide celebrity due to her quick success, and Ryan's profession had to contend with being relevant in a field that was already changing. Both were under tremendous pressure, and their relationship quickly devolved into a conflict between insecurity, ambition, and the demanding demands of fame. Although the public only saw their magazine cover perfect smiles, the fractures in their supposedly flawless romance had already begun to show. The 1970s were the decade that Ryan and Farrah's relationship was shaped by. Although they were the ideal couple that captivated everybody's attention, they were also two powerful people with somewhat different demands. In reality, what appeared to be fate was the start of a passionate, chaotic, and heartbreaking love tale. The reality was much more nuanced, even if viewers believed they were seeing the ascent of Hollywood's golden pair. What followed would show how erratic this connection really was. On the surface, the romance between Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett seemed to have all the glitz and glamour of a Hollywood fairy tale. Those closest to them, however, were aware that a completely different story was being told behind closed doors. Over the course of almost 3 decades, their relationship was anything but easy. It was characterized by intensity and emotion as well as sudden outbursts of debate. Friends described how the couple would be at odds one minute and inseparable the next, frequently splitting up just to get back together as if nothing had happened. Ryan was partially to blame for the unpredictability. He later acknowledged that he battled control and jealousy. It wasn't just admiration for Farrah. She was loved all across the world. The walls of bedrooms had her image. Every week in television homes and glossy magazines. Ryan felt both pride and uncertainty as he observed how the world was fascinated by the lady he loved. Whether they were real, rumors of adultery simply served to stoke the flames, and mistrust frequently rocked their family life. However, Farrah was adamant about pursuing a profession that extended beyond simply appearing on posters. As an actress, she aspired to be respected, and frequently defied the restrictions Hollywood attempted to impose on her. Ryan's own professional difficulties occasionally conflicted with his drive. He was negotiating a string of ups and downs following his early smash success, while she was taking audacious chances. Their partnership turned into a struggle between ambition and resentment rather than a celebration of each other's successes. Their love life was portrayed as the greatest soap opera by tabloids, who were always looking for drama. They were seen together at a glitzy function one week. Headlines the following week screamed about a separation. The whirlwind was too much for the fans to follow. They were unaware, however, that this pattern of separation and reconciliation had come to characterize their relationship. It was grueling, filthy, and magnetic. No matter how many times they tried, Ryan and Farrah were unable to leave for very long. They would enter a new period, well beyond the glitz of the 1970s, thanks to this pattern of volatility, where their relationship and professions would be put to the test in ways that no one could have foreseen. And just when it seems that they might have at last achieved serenity, their story would take a different turn. The radiance that once surrounded Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett had started to wane by the early 1990s. They had transformed along with Hollywood. Once one of the most bankable leading men, Ryan was having trouble finding jobs that lived up to the potential of his early career. Ryan frequently acknowledged that he had no idea how to remake himself for a new generation of movies since viewers had moved on. Farrah, however, was on a different course. She demonstrated that she had the range and commitment to take on major dramatic roles, shattering her reputation as merely a television star and poster icon. Even though it meant abandoning the glitzy persona that had initially brought her fame, her roles in stage plays and television films started to get her praise from critics. The space between them widened as a result of this disparity in momentum. While Ryan was battling personal issues and professional frustration, Farrah was looking for artistic fulfillment, depth, and significance. The couple's friends saw that they appeared to be going in different paths with their lives. Ryan was holding on to the past while Farrah was changing. Their relationship frequently became a battleground of unfulfilled expectations as a result of this imbalance. The two formally parted ways by the late 1990s. It appeared that their story had finally come to a conclusion after almost 20 years of turmoil. Ryan, however, was unable to let go of their shared memories despite their separation. He acknowledged years later that Farrah did not merit him as a partner. He acknowledged that he pushed her away in part due to immaturity, pride, and selfishness. He was frank in interviews about how he didn't appreciate her when he still had the opportunity. "My life's love was her. I let her go after," he said that. Although the world believed their romance was over, their bond remained strong. Nobody understood at the time that fate had another chapter in store for Ryan and Farrah, one that would reunite them in more tragic ways than anybody could have predicted. The tale of Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett took an unexpected turn in 2006. The lady whose face formerly represented life, beauty, and health, Farrah, was given a heartbreaking diagnosis. The world was rocked by the news that she was fighting cancer. As she fought the most difficult battle of her life, admirers who had admired her from her Charlie's Angels days watched in shock. The fact that Ryan abruptly returned to her side after years of being apart, fighting, and feeling regret only served to heighten the story's suspense. Their reunion was motivated by love, loyalty, and necessity rather than Hollywood glitz. After being accused of being overly self-centered, Ryan assumed the position of caregiver. He sought to console Farrah in a battle that was frequently cruel in public, accompanied her to treatments, and protected her from intrusive reporters when he could. It was more than just providing her with physical support for him. It was an opportunity to mend what had been damaged and demonstrate that his love for her had never really diminished in spite of everything. Farrah made the decision to tell the world about her journey because she was determined to keep control of her own story. Her 2009 documentary, Farrah's Story, provided an unapologetic glimpse at her bravery, hardships, and therapies. Millions of people watched the special, and many were astounded by her candor. Previously viewed solely as a gorgeous figure, she now showed herself to be a warrior with a genuine human vulnerability. Ryan was there the entire time, his presence indisputable, his dedication obvious. This chapter was both devastating and redemptive for many who had followed their tumultuous romance for decades. They appeared to have been compelled by life to put aside the drama and confront what really mattered. Later on, Ryan acknowledged that those years spent with her were some of the most significant in his life. They had nothing to do with wealth or celebrity. They have to do with love, reduced to its most basic form. Despite the impact of their reunion, the chapter's conclusion would leave Ryan permanently damaged and pave the road for his confession years later. Farrah Fawcett passed away on June 25, 2009, at the age of 62. After a protracted and widely reported battle that revealed her extraordinary strength and vulnerability, she passed away. But for Ryan O'Neal, it went beyond the passing of a beloved figure. It was the most intimate heartbreak he had ever experienced. He had finally made his way back to her side after years of upheaval, reconciliations, and separation, only to lose her forever. Ryan's sorrow was evident the day Farrah died. He was open about the gap she left behind, referring to her as the love of his life and acknowledging that no one could ever replace her. He recalled their last moments together in an interview, and his voice broke as he said that they had reconciled with their past and had reconnected before the end. He was thankful for their time together but overwhelmed by the sorrow of what had been lost after their bittersweet conclusion. The audience had always perceived the love story as a flurry of drama and emotion. However, Ryan's dedication became indisputable during those last several weeks. He had changed from the irritated actor of the 1990s to the Hollywood playboy of the 1970s. He was a naked man who was grieving for the woman he had always loved. The fact that so many close friends and family members attended Farrah's funeral served as a testament to how profoundly she had impacted everyone in her vicinity. Fans were most surprised by Ryan's admissions in the years that followed, not only by his pain. He admitted that he had intended to pop the question to Farrah in her last days, but the opportunity had passed. He claimed that although he was prepared for the proposal and had the ring with him, events prevented it from happening. It was a heartbreaking admission that he had waited too long to offer her what she had always deserved, for a guy who had built his entire existence on charm and bluster. However, Ryan's tale did not stop there. He continued to open up over time about his shortcomings, regrets, and the agonizing reality that plagued him well into his 80s. Ryan O'Neal hardly ever discussed his personal life in public as the years went by. When he did, the weight of a man troubled by his loss was evident in his remarks. He stopped trying to hide behind Hollywood bluster by the time he was in his 90s. He started acknowledging what his admirers had long suspected, that his biggest regret was not getting married to Farrah Fawcett when he had the opportunity. His voice broke in interviews when he admitted that he had been too pompous, immature, and self-centered to offer her the devotion she desired. Ryan admitted he had always thought Farrah would be present. They had established a pattern of splitting up and getting back together, giving the impression that they would always find a way to get back together, no matter how bad things got. However, that illusion was destroyed as illness struck and time ran out. The ring he carried remained a mute reminder of a relationship that ended without resolution, and the intended proposal never materialized. He acknowledged that I will always regret losing the love of my life. Until the day I die. The confession was upsetting to fans. They had been following the couple's tumultuous romance in the news for decades. They had sighed at their splits and thrilled at their reunions. However, the whole story was reframed when Ryan eventually admitted how much he regretted his actions. It was no longer merely a story of drama and passion. It was a tale of unforgivable errors and a guy who discovered too late that his pride had cost him everything. This candor touched a nerve because it showed a very human side. Ryan was simply another individual who had allowed love to elude them behind the glitz and celebrity. His admission revealed a vulnerability that is frequently concealed by Hollywood celebrities. It also got fans closer to the truth than they had ever been before. But it wasn't just Farrah he regretted. Ryan was questioned about his role as a father and the difficulties in his family when he opened up about his history. The tragedy of Ryan O'Neal's broken relationships and agonizing regrets was not limited to his anguish over Farrah Fawcett. He had a problematic job as a father for a long time, and he freely acknowledged his shortcomings with his children in his later years. His relationship with his daughter from his first marriage, Tatum O'Neal, was infamously tense. Even though they had been in the spotlight together when she won an Academy Award as a child, the demands of celebrity, personal hardships, and acrimonious arguments caused their relationship to quickly fall apart. They hardly communicated for decades, with both admitting in interviews that a large portion of their relationship had been characterized by painful words and protracted silences. Then there was his kid with Farrah, Redmond O'Neal. Redmond's life was filled with upheaval, including high-profile court issues and problems with addiction. Even Farrah had voiced serious concerns about his future. particularly while she was ill. Later on, Ryan acknowledged that he felt he had let Redmond down by not giving him the support and direction a father should have given him. His son's hardships served as a continual reminder to him of the turmoil that had surrounded his own life and decisions. Ryan was greatly affected by these family rifts. His thoughts on his kids were frequently entwined with his disclosures regarding Farrah. He realized that his immaturity and impetuousness had hurt his function as a dad in addition to costing him the lady he loved. He came clean and said, "I wasn't the partner Farrah deserved, and I wasn't the father I should have been." It was an uncommon admission of responsibility, the sort that exposed a guy who believed his legacy was seriously flawed and tore away the Hollywood facade. These revelations were both devastating and enlightening for fans. They demonstrated that Ryan had regrets about everything from romance to the most intimate aspects of his life. Nevertheless, his story's core remained his dedication to Farrah despite all of this suffering. He frequently returned to her, even when thinking about his kids, as though everything, his shortcomings, his regrets, his desires, were connected to the love he had lost. But there was one indisputable fact, even in his darkest thoughts. The scandals and regrets would continue to be overshadowed by the legend of Ryan and Farrah's love story. Despite all of the upheaval, regrets, and heartache, one of the most memorable romances in Hollywood history is the one involving Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett. It was a story of intense desire that withstood decades of splits, reconciliations, and even the threat of disease rather than one of perfect harmony. Fans keep coming back to their narrative because it was authentic, messy, complex, and incredibly human, not because it was perfect. There is still no comparison to Farrah's legacy. In addition to being the blonde beauty who adorned advertisements and TV screens, she is remembered as a strong lady who bravely confronted her disease. The world's perception of her was permanently altered by her documentary, Farrah's Story, which documented her tenacity. She came to represent both boldness and vulnerability to many, demonstrating that beneath the glitzy exterior lay a woman of remarkable depth. Despite being much more complex, Ryan's legacy will always be connected to her. He talked candidly about remorse and lost love in his final years, demonstrating how deeply Farrah had shaped his life. His statements dispelled the Hollywood playboy persona and exposed a guy who, in spite of wealth and celebrity, based his entire life on a single love. Fans saw a man who had loved, lost, and carried that pain until the end, not a movie star. Their romance resisted simple explanation, which is why it is still carved in Hollywood history. It was more than just success and attractiveness. It was about the unadulterated, erratic power of two individuals who, despite everything that seemed to be pulling them apart, were unable to let go of one another. It was a tale of love that persisted through adversity and ultimately turned into a tale of salvation. In his last years, Ryan O'Neal made one thing clear despite all of his mistakes. Fawcett, Farrah, was the love of his life, and nothing could ever heal the gap she left behind. Their tale serves as a reminder that some ties are stronger than others, despite their flaws. In addition to his regret, Ryan carried the truth, which cemented their status as one of the most enduring and tragic love tales in Hollywood history. At 82, Ryan O'Neal made a confession that went beyond simple self-disclosure. It was the climax of a love tale that the world had witnessed for more than 30 years, a tale of passion, blunders, forgiveness, and remorse. While Ryan's candor in his final years demonstrated the depth of his love and the anguish of lost opportunities, Farrah Fawcett continues to be a symbol of beauty and bravery. They created a legacy together that was memorable despite its flaws. We are forced to consider a question by their story. How often do we assume that love is a given, presuming that there is always more time? The response was too late for Ryan. It reminds the rest of us that certain opportunities never present themselves again. Make sure to subscribe for more untold stories of Hollywood's greatest legends if you were moved by their story as much as we were. Additionally, remember to like and share this film with everyone who still remembers Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett's enduring love.